So my name's Lindsay Rosenthal. I'm a director. I'm one of 3 directors at Roots Volleyball in Austin, Texas. We have our own facility as of 2 years ago. We have 5.5 courts, and I say half because we have this little half training court that's been really helpful for us. Nice. And we have 40 teams this year, from 11s up to 18s. And on top of that, we have we have youth programming, academy programming, all of that in and out of our gym all year. So always trying to grow, but always trying to get better and make our gym more efficient. So I joined the club 3 years ago, and with joining the club, we did a lot of just internal reflection of our processes. We got a new website platform. We went away, I don't want to say brands, but we went away from one that we had used for years, and it was old-fashioned, unwieldy. It was really hard to use. We now use League Apps, and it's great. So we redid that. We redid some of our branding. And so everything that we looked at, we just thought, okay, how can we make the processes better? Heather Anderson is one of our directors. She's been with us a long time, and she just knows her shit. She knows everything really well from, I mean, she knows everything that's going on. And so she was one of the instigators of, like, we need to make this process better. And so we went back to the drawing board. We interviewed a lot of people, a lot of companies that do this, and TeamGenius was just the easiest from start to finish. And to be honest, every single person we've talked to along the way has been so helpful. And our rep who checks in on us, her name's Batanya, and I would hire her in a second if she would come work for us, because she is she's been so great. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, she just works us through every process. So we've been using TeamGenius for almost 2 years now, but we keep increasing the amount that we're using it. So we started with just basic evaluations, and then we've added in the in-season evaluations just to help, help standardize throughout the year what our coaches are evaluating, and to keep records of each of those kids so that we can look back and say, okay, they started like this, but now they've progressed to this. And we're really hoping it helps us a ton with tryouts next year also, just to have those files on record.
So Lindsay, super excited to be able to get to know your club a little bit more and how you all operate from a player evaluation standpoint. Can you start off by just maybe giving an overview of how you all handle player evaluations from the beginning of tryouts through the season?
Yeah, so we use a program called TeamGenius, and we signed on with that just so we could be able to track all of it. It's been really helpful for us to track it. So when the kids come in to tryouts, we take a picture of them on their profile. We have that picture on their profile the whole year. We're able to pick like the kinds of evaluations that we want to do, passing, setting, hitting, and how we want to rank them. So I think we're constantly evolving on how we want to do that. And within TeamGenius, you can just clone what you've had the year before and edit it before you go on to the next one. So that's what we've been using. And within that, it's super helpful because we just have every coach walk around with an iPad or an iPhone, and we explain to everyone that they're not texting, they're actually doing evaluations. And we just tell them, make as many comments as possible, rate as many kids as possible, whatever they see in the tryout process, put it in there so that we have information on every kid. For instance, like with 14s this year, we had 140 kids try out, and we only took 75, 80, somewhere in there. And so there were a lot of kids that we had to cut, and just having any kind of information on them is so useful. What we used before was spreadsheets, handwritten notes, and man, it was next to impossible to keep it all straight and to make sure that like the picture we had went with the right kid. Now we have it all within the TeamGenius profile. But more than that for us, and I don't know if this is answering your question, but I'll just keep talking. More useful to us is that we now do in-season evaluations through TeamGenius also, so that we can track from the second that they entered our gym and then throughout the season, once we assign them to a team. So again, in the past, we've done in-season evaluations, but we did it all on paper. We had files and files saved in our computers of the paper copies that our coaches used. And, they did it and it was really useful, but it was very time consuming. And so now the players are already loaded into TeamGenius. We have a separate evaluation tool within that we can put different standards on and just say, okay, where's our passing at this point? Where's our hitting? Where's our serve receive? And then we do some intangibles within that. So we do all the skills, but then we do intangibles because we do 3 evaluations throughout the year. And maybe I'm answering some of your questions before you ask them, but we do the 3 evaluations just to let the kids know the progress they're making. So for instance, I just did my evaluations with my team and we sit down one-on-one and I show them the scores, and all of my scores for my team were pretty terrible. And when I say that, on a scale of 10, mostly 4s to 6s. And so I would explain to them ahead of time, like, nobody's getting 8s right now. We're at the beginning of the season. We're still learning a lot. But then when it got to the intangibles, like teamwork and hustle and coachability, most of those were super high. So that was my way to kind of encourage my team that you're doing good stuff. We just got to catch you up on the rest of it.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good overview. And in your opinion, when should clubs evaluate their players during the season?
Oh man, always. We do it constantly. And it's kind of for all parties involved. So as directors, we don't have direct contact with every player in our club. We like to know every player in our club, but we don't see them on a daily basis. So having our coaches, so starting with tryouts, we have as many coaches as we can do the feedback within the tryout evaluation. And so we try to get as many comments in there as possible, try to get as many scores in there as possible, just so we can go back to it afterwards and refer back to the scores and evaluations that the coaches did. But then once the teams are formed, we have our coaches do the in-season evaluation so that we can get a little bit more insight on what the players are doing. But really, it's to open the lines of communication so that kids can know, like, we're watching you all the time. We are evaluating you all the time. These are the specific things that you can work on to either earn more playing time, earn a spot on the court, earn this team next year, whatever it is. We can give them specific milestones to work through the season. So when you say, when do we do our evaluations, it's kind of constant. And we have 3 one-on-one meetings between the coaches and the players throughout the season. And those are scheduled. We have them before or after practice, or on Zoom, or on the weekends, or something, so that we can hand this evaluation over to them and say, here are your current scores. These are the things that I really need you to work on. These are the things that you're doing great and you're adding to the team. And I always tell my players when we have a one-on-one, you don't have to wait for this to come to me and talk to me, but at least it forces us to sit down and have that conversation of, this is where you are, this is where we're heading. Because as coaches, we get in the gym, we have our practice time, and we want to go, 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 go. And we don't take the time to slow down and have those conversations. So having these 3 evaluations throughout the year forces us to have the conversation and give them the milestones to work for. So you asked, when do we evaluate? Always. Having the tool in TeamGenius to do the evaluation helps us keep record of where we are, the comments we've made in the past, what we've asked them to work out on, and then as coaches to reevaluate, are they doing those things? Or do we have to go back and say, listen, we talked about this 2 months ago, you're still not doing it. I really have to have you do this. And then, so from the player's perspective, they know what they need to work on. And then from the parents' perspective, we invite all of them into these one-on-one meetings. Most of the parents, they don't necessarily take us up on that, especially at the older ages. But they at least have access to the information, even if they don't sit in on the meeting with us. And so it's also a little bit of a CYA, like we have record of what we talked about at what time and are able to track it throughout the season.
Yeah, I think you touched on 2 really important things. The first one, a consistent place to look for information and keep it and reference it. And the second would be you're holding everyone accountable.
Right.
The players.
Coaches included.
Yeah.
It makes our coaches kind of introspective of, okay, what have I communicated to this kid? Like, I want her to do this, but have I actually told her? And so it forces us to have that conversation to say, okay, this is what I need you to do. And without that, we all have other jobs we're doing. We have other aspects to our life, and we kind of get the season goes by really fast. And so if we don't force those evaluations on ourselves, they probably won't happen. So I think that's really why we were looking for a solution to make this just a little bit easier process than the old fashioned pull out a Word doc, fill it in and write each evaluation individually. And it becomes really hard to do that 3 times throughout the year. So having it on record and being able to refer back to it and just like score, it's an easy, like you tap on a score and then write the comment, tap on a score, write the comment. So we really sought that out so that we can make it easier on our coaches and like you said, keep that record.
Great. So you did talk about it with tryouts, but if you could just list what criteria you think coaches should evaluate players on. And obviously there's the skill and then the intangibles.
Right.
So list each one and why they're important.
So we did break it down fairly simply for our in-season evaluations, just to make it a little bit easier on our coaches. So we have hitting, and again, we just do a score of 0 to 10. Obviously, we tell our coaches not to do 0 for anyone. We gotta give them some hope. But we do, within that, we also have TeamGenius has the option to put, I forget what they call it, but you're able to save some comments in each skill so that we as directors can go in and set it ahead of time. So we can say, your arm swing is great, but you can't get your feet to the ball. So we can put that in as a little snippet for each coach to say, yes, this applies to my kid. So we have probably 15 comments under each skill that coaches can click on and say, yes, this applies. Yes, this applies. And then they can put in their own comments beyond that.
That's a time saver for sure. So almost like a tag.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I forget what they call it, but it's super easy for us to do that ahead of time. And so we do hitting, we do passing, we do setting, even for our non-setters. We want to evaluate that for everybody. Defense, serve, receive, and serving. So we do every skill. But within that, we have different comments about footwork, their movement to the ball, what their arm swing is doing, good and bad. So we have to put the good comments in and the bad comments. Like this is, we like one of the comments might be, your arm swing is good, but you really need to work on opening up. And that's something you can work on at home. Like that's something we could put in the saved comments just because lots of coaches might use that. And then beyond all the skills, we do coachability and attitude. Those are the two intangibles that we put in there just because you could be coachable, but have a bad attitude. And you could have a great attitude, but not respond to anything we're asking you to do. And so we wanted to go those two avenues. I think this will be an evolving set of criteria, and especially those comments will be evolving over time, but we wanted to keep it as simple as possible. And these evaluations, as we sit down with our kids and hand them over, are really just a conversation starter and a way for us to track. So we may say, okay, your hitting is at a 6 and here's why, look at the comments, but this, like, let's talk about this. How do we make it better? So we don't make them pages and pages and pages because people probably wouldn't read them and they would check out. So it's just one page, super simple. They get their scores, their comments, and overall comments at the bottom. And we can have a conversation about it.
And when your coaches are meeting with the athletes, you said you invite the parents in, and is there typically like the assistant coach there, an acting director there? Is there another adult there besides the parent?
Yes, we always have another adult. So either it's in our lobby or in our open space, so that that's just a safe sport thing, right? Like we never have a single coach along with a single player ever. There's no exception to that. So we do invite our assistant coaches, but the onus for this is really on our head coaches. We hope that our assistant coaches make comments. Like I always check with my assistant coaches, but I have 2 assistant coaches. They come from a long way away. So, it's harder for them to get there an hour early and sit through these. And they're both college students. So I don't expect them to sit in on every meeting. It's just extra time. It's extra everything, extra travel, all of that. But we have several coaches who do meet together. So my team could be a special circumstance just because I'm a director and I have college kids as my assistants. Others who are more, I feel like I need to say this differently. So this is an editable moment.
Yeah,
most of our coaches do sit down together with a head coach and an assistant coach, so that we have 2 adults there. It doesn't always happen, but we always have some witness of some kind, whether it's meeting in the open area or meeting like at one of our gyms, there's a cafe, people can meet in the cafe.
Okay. And let's switch gears and talk about the delivery of the feedback that's happening. So if you could just talk through, from your experience, being an athlete, being a parent, being a director, how should you deliver the feedback effectively when you're doing these evaluations with these kids?
So there's lots of different ways that we can do it, but we try to be as honest as possible. And that goes back to, they can't get better if we don't tell them their deficiencies and tell them how they can get, what they can work on to get more playing time or to make a better team next year, whatever it may be. So we try to be as honest as possible, but there is always the compliment sandwich that we try to do. Like your toss is really great. You just aren't contacting the ball that well, but I know you can do it. So there's an easy way to do a compliment sandwich of like, we know you're on the right track, but here's what you're doing wrong, and here's how we can get there. And I think I said it before, but it, like, just to make it a conversation, not, hey, this is what you're doing wrong, do this better, do this better, do this better, but just have it be a conversation. And that's really how we as a club coach a lot, because we want all of our coaches constantly talking. We want all of our players to feel comfortable to talk to us. And we definitely like say, no, you crossed the line there. That's not something you can say to me, but this is, on the side, this is a conversation we can have. Like, we have a 48-hour rule. You can't talk about playing time at tournaments, just as an example. So we do have some boundaries for how the conversation can happen and when it can happen. But for the most part, we're trying to, empower these young women to become strong individuals. So we want them to advocate for themselves. We want them to say, hey, you told me to try this, but it's still not working and I'm still not playing more. What can I do? So when we hand over the evaluations, it really is a conversation starter to just say, how are you doing? What do you think of the team? How can we be better as coaches? This is what we think you can do to be better as a player and a teammate.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that compliment sandwich. I wish I had more of those growing up.
I know, right? We all need that.
Yeah, it's good. So from a coach's, learning, developing, improving as a coach, I mean, how do you think these evaluations, when using the TeamGenius software and being able to really like go off of those notes and think through, I mean, how do you think these coaches are benefiting from this process?
Time. They're saving time, and that can go toward practice planning, watching film, any other kind of evaluation that they don't have to spend time writing these things out. It's within the program already. It's really just click, 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 maybe add a couple comments of their own. And then the report spits out for them, so they can spend more time focusing on their players and not just writing these evaluations out. And I think, I don't know if every club does 3 evaluations throughout the year. I think it is really important to do that, just, to keep on track, to keep your coaches on track, to keep your players on track, to keep your parents in check, and just have that constant evaluation, so that when you go into tryouts the next year, a placement on a lower team might not be a surprise, because they've been warned throughout the year, or that they know that they're on track to get to a higher team, and you just need to do these 3 things and you'll get there. Like, it, to have that information throughout the year is very helpful. And for us, we will always do it. TeamGenius just makes it a ton easier and a ton faster.
And your club holds tryouts in July, right?
Yes.
So when did you switch to that time frame?
We've always had that. I mean, for years. I think Lone Star region was one of the first to have it. I mean, I had at least 10 years, at least.
So when you're talking tryouts in July,
yeah,
then the season,
a lot of stuff changes
after high school season.
Yeah.
And there's just so much growth that happens during that 7 month, 6-7 months.
We hope growth.
Right. And that's what you're striving for, helping them through that time period. Yeah. A lot of clubs that have that long of a season, I mean, you'd hope that you have something to go off of, right? When you're talking to these kids through getting to be better volleyball players.
Yeah. And as you say that, it makes me think that we probably need to do a fall, a mid high school season fall evaluation of, this is what you look like at tryouts. This is what we're expecting. We don't do that currently, but I think that having the TeamGenius tool to do this makes it so much easier. I would like to add, at one point you asked about the meeting. When we have our coaches sit down with our players, we do ask them to talk to the players. So even if the parent is there, we make eye contact with the players. We talk to the players as if they are the counterpoint to us. We're not talking to the parent saying, hey, your daughter needs to work on, because really it's the kids who need to hear it, the kids who need to make the response, so that and that's just part of the process of empowering them as young women, right? Just letting them know that they're the ones we're focused on, not their parents.
Yeah, that's so important, what you just hit on. And if you do that right away in the conversation, it lets the athlete know that, it gives them that lead.
It also somewhat silences the parents, because they, innately, they want their kid to speak up. They want their kid to become more aggressive as a self-advocate. They want that. So it immediately, just by making that eye contact, it immediately shuts them down, whether they know it or not. It just does, because they're like, oh yeah, I need my kid in this conversation. I need my kid to speak up for herself. And, they'll add in snippets here and there. And it definitely depends on the personality of the parent, how much, how much they add in or not, because some parents will want to be heard no matter what. But the eye contact and the attention on the kids individually really, really matters.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, the parents see all the information just as much as their kid does. They're still involved.
Yeah.
Why go the extra mile to conduct a formal evaluation during the season?
Because we don't take the time to do it if we don't make it formal. If we don't require it of our coaches, we mandate that they turn it into us, not only so that we can see the evaluation, but just as a check on their work and that they're actually getting it done. If we don't make it formal, it doesn't happen. And I'm not saying that our coaches won't do it in that they're deficient. It's kind of like a TPS report. If you don't require it, it's not going to happen. So the evaluations would happen in an informal way, but then there's always, some kids may get more information than other kids, and we need to make sure every kid is hit and every kid is evaluated, and the coach is thinking about every single thing that the kids are doing.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of clubs say that they do evaluations, right? But when you're, talking to your prospective athletes, that maybe aren't at your club yet, and you're really promoting your club and how you train and develop, do you talk about your evaluation process as like a selling point?
Yeah, we talk about it at tryouts to let the parents know, but it's just something we've done for so long that for us, it doesn't seem like an add-on or like a extra benefit. Although when you say it like that, it probably is. We probably need to sell it just a little bit more.
Because it goes hand in hand, right? With communication.
Yeah.
The two-way street.
Yeah. You're right. We do talk about, we have an open door policy, and I know that other clubs might hear this and think, oh my gosh, they're just opening themselves up to trouble, and like no parents are allowed to talk to us, and that works for us. I get that. I get it. But for our club, this works better. To have the open communication works better. I several times have said to parents, you cross the line a little bit. Like this is where your job ends as a parent and my job starts as a coach and a director. And, when parents start questioning practice plans and things like that, I'll say, nope, that's not your job. And I don't know who said it first, but I've seen it written several times where you can have one job. You can be an athlete, you can be a parent, you can be an official, or you can be a coach. You can't be more than one of those. So if you want to be a coach, you can do safe sport, you can get the training, you can go through all of our preseason meetings and do everything, but then you're a coach and you're not a parent. So you get to choose one or the other. So we do draw lines in the sand of what they can have opinions on and what they can't. But for us as a club, it's really important that they know that we have an open door policy. And part of that is this evaluation process. Like we do those evaluations throughout the year so that there is communication the whole season of expectations and next steps and how you can get better, instead of just, well, you're on the bench this match. Okay, well, why? What did I do and how do I get off it?
Yeah.
So we have more of an open door policy, I think, than some clubs, but for us it works. And a large part of that is being able to do the evaluations, and what has helped us a ton is just the ease of the evaluations through TeamGenius.
Very cool. Yeah. Can you think of any, I guess in a way, like a testimonial? I mean, some player feedback that you've gotten like that was so helpful. You know, there have been some like really good stories just from how much feedback you've been able to provide some of these kids and help them in their journey. Do you feel like that's been a part of making them better?
I think, you mean what specific to the
Like
evaluations?
anybody that's an alum now that like has given some positive feedback about their process as an athlete going through all these evaluations, how it's helped them. Have you guys heard some good stuff about that?
So the testimonials like that come in the form of, 10 years later, we're still invited to weddings and, a kid's first communion or something like that. So we definitely create more of a community and family atmosphere. The problem with saying that is, when you demote a kid from a team from year to year, it's immediately, I thought I was part of your family and you just kicked me out of your family. Well, no, like with family members, some are striving at some points and some are not. And just like any family, we get in fights and we have conflict resolution that we have to get through. And, but I think the best testimonials is that we have a lot of players come back to coach and stay part of our process throughout the years and check back in with us. And that, again, is part of our open door policy. Like, we want to know what's going on with your kids and your siblings and your dog, and did you get a new cat and whatever it is. But as far as the one-on-one, we don't get a lot of feedback on that because I don't think our kids know any different. They just think that that's part of the process and how it should happen. So
interesting. Yeah. Because you get a new kid and they go through this evaluation process. I'm wondering if they're like, wow, this is new. This is great. Like, this is a lot of info.
Yeah, we definitely get that, especially from kids from out of state who aren't used to the constant feedback and the evaluations. Yes, we when they move into our club and and they get the feedback at tryouts, they get the feedback throughout the year, they, the director goes up and knows their name and gives them a high five. And that's not exclusive to us. I know a lot of clubs are able to do that, but
that's special.
we really are in the business of making strong young women. So we do that by recognizing them as individuals.